This episode of the Cult Pop Show podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch or get 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, then please consider becoming a patron and joining us at www.patreon.com/cultpopshow. Hello and welcome to the Cult Pop Show podcast. This is another classic episode of film franchise Fortnights, and if you're listening to this, or if you're recording this and it's your birthday, then happy birthday!
Oh, thank you so much.
You thought I'd forgotten.
I didn't think you'd forgotten, but it was like, I don't want to tell people it's my birthday.
Are you one of those kind of people?
I want them to just know. It's not. It's more out of like a, if someone was talking about birthdays and I was there, I'd be like, it's funny you should mention it's actually my birthday today. But if no one's going to bring it up, I'm just going to be like, it's my birthday today.
Right, yeah.
Sort of
I'm kind of the opposite.
Shake my head about all cocky like.
Yeah, actually, as I've gotten older, I've kind of gotten more like that. But man, I love birthdays, and I love my birthday, and
Wow.
I love you.
Ah, good.
So, today's a good day for me, and a good day for us, and a good day for the podcast, because we're recording an episode about the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so did we say this is film franchise Fortnights?
I mentioned it. I didn't explain the concept of the podcast. Do you want to explain it quickly to stall while I adjust my microphone, because it's slightly too far away from me?
You just disappeared, and I for like so long on the Skype machine.
Yeah,
it was
you
like
froze.
you were gone. I didn't. You kept talking though. I just didn't say anything.
It ended freezing right when I finished talking. Anyway, I said, do you want to explain the podcast while I adjust my microphone?
Okay, so this is Film Franchise Fortnights, where every fortnight we watch a different film franchise that is either voted on by our patrons at patreon.com/cultpopshow, or randomly generated by a random genre generator. A genrenator. And can we start calling it that? The genrenator?
But it doesn't randomly select a genre, it randomly selects a film franchise. You're thinking of 48 Hours, a local film competition, which you run the Christchurch branch of.
Yeah, okay, so let's get that out of the way. I feel so embarrassed. I can't believe this is recorded. Yeah, so me and Richard, but more me, I guess, are both in the midst of kind of New Zealand's annual best thing that happens in New Zealand.
Yeah, AJ's birthday.
Yeah. No, we're in the middle of a film competition. We've talked about it on the podcast a couple of times when it's happened. Richard competes, and I used to compete, but now I run it in Christchurch, and a big part of that is genre. Ergo, my Freudian slip before. The point being, I'm probably the busiest I am all year in this part, in the like over June, July. I do more work than I do for the rest of the year in that small amount of time. And
also, our friendship is very strained.
I wouldn't say our friendship's strained. I would say it's important to be delicate and secretive, because I can't tell Richard anything about what I think about his film, because there's a finalist section and he's part of the judging
process. But
so this is one of the only times on the podcast where you will genuinely hear Richard and I not being 100% honest with each other.
Yeah, it is a weird feeling. Like when we
see, like, ask me if I liked your film right now.
Do you like my film?
Can't tell you.
Do you like your own film?
My own. I didn't make a film.
Well, then you suck.
Cool.
Got
All right, no, so this is Film Franchise Fortnights. So we don't select a random genre. We select a random, a random film franchise.
Yep.
Let's call it the Franchisinator.
Mm.
All right. And this fortnight, we randomly had I Know What You Did Last Summer selected, and that's using the genuine use of the term randomly, and not just like, we randomly selected.
Boy, that's so random.
Which was a trilogy and part of like an ongoing sub-series within Film Franchise Fortnights of us covering kind of classic horror slasher franchises in different eras.
Yeah, and somehow they always end up on the weeks that I'm running.
Well, sometimes we just
wiggle
it on over. Yeah. it's a 50-50 chance, but every time it isn't that, we make it so that it's you. I don't know how much of a coincidence that is.
Yeah. Anyway, so I Know What You Did Last Summer is a trilogy of 3 films. The first one is I Know What You Did Last Summer, that came out in 1997. Then a year later we had I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. And then all the way in 2006 we had I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah. So
we will go through what these films are about in more detail, but the Wikipedia plot synopses for these are just so good that I just have to read these out, and then we can kind of add a bit more detail. So the first one is, after an accident on a winding road, 4 teens make the fatal mistake of dumping their victim's body into the sea. But exactly 1 year later, the dead man returns from his watery grave, and he's looking for more than an apology.
That's not even entirely accurate as to what actually happens.
I know, it's so... He's looking for more than an apology.
because he actually wakes up before they dump him into the sea, which is something I didn't know about this film. I'd never seen it before, but I knew the vague.
Yeah, neither had I, for the record.
And when he woke up before they dumped him into the sea, I was like, this kind of adulterates the purity of what I thought the concept was.
Yeah,
you know, it's not as cool now that they know he's alive. And I assume in the terms of the plot, I assumed it was to give them more equal sharing of the guilt overall.
Right, yeah. And the fact that it's like guilt, not just like, they can just go to the cops at any point.
Yeah, exactly. All right. What's the second one's synopsis?
So the second one is the murderous fisherman with a hook is back to once again stalk the 2 surviving teens, Julie James and Ray Bronson, who left him for dead, as well as cause even more murder and mayhem, this time at a posh island resort.
The man with a hook is back, and this time he's brought his son.
Yeah.
It's actually what it's about. Spoilers for I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
And the last one is a group of teenagers in Colorado find themselves being stalked and killed one by one by a mysterious figure with a hook exactly 1 year after they covered up a friend's accidental death. That one's not as funny. It's just those are the 3.
Yeah.
And it suits the massive drop-off in quality of the third film.
Is it? Well, it is a massive drop-off in quality.
Yeah.
However, this is one of this in terms of just like boilerplate baseline quality of, where we start, this has got to be one of the worst franchises we've ever watched.
Yeah.
I thought these films were terrible. What did you think?
Oh, yeah, they are terrible. There's a certain charm to the first one. So the first one was written by Kevin Williamson, who you might remember wrote Scream, which came out a year before this. And yeah, it's, I don't know, there's a schlocky charm to it, and even though I haven't seen them before, there's like a nostalgia because of Scary Movie. Because it's I Know You Did Last Summer and Scream are the 2 main films parodied in the first Scary Movie.
It's funny, isn't it, that we watched, in this podcast's lifespan, we kind of watched everything in the reverse order of what we should have watched it in, because we watched Scream first. No, sorry, we watched the Scary Movie franchise first, which is the parody. Then we watched Scream, which is like the meta... The satire, yeah. And then we watched I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is the genuine article.
But also, the order they came out in is wrong as well.
Yeah. And I guess maybe it's good that we watched them in this order, but like it is interesting that we've gone up the ladder in terms of sincerity as opposed to down.
At least we did have... I mean, because we're just talking about the late 90s, because there was like a resurgence of slasher films, late 90s, early 2000s, because of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. But like, at least by the time we got to something like Scream, when it's a very meta, we were well aware of the tropes of slasher films because we'd watched all of the Nightmare on Elm Street and all of the Friday the 13th films.
And Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And Halloween. We hadn't watched Halloween.
So, I Know You Did Last Summer, 1997. Directed by Jim Gillespie. What do you think that has on Rotten Tomatoes?
40%. You're
very close.
Yeah, tell
42.
me. 42. Yeah.
So do you want to go into a little bit more detail about what that's about?
Okay, no. I think we covered it. They accidentally
who's
run
the
over.
Killer? Yeah.
The killer is someone they call the Fisherman, who is a character who is not introduced until it's relevant to know who he is. So you can't guess who it is, which I was doing, by the way. I was like, oh, well, it's that character.
Yeah,
oh,
it's Leonard.
that character.
Yeah.
It's Leonard from Big Bang Theory. But it's not. And there's a whole backstory to his character that, like, he is responsible for his girlfriend's. No, is it his son?
Yeah.
No, what was it?
Yeah, it involves a son.
But then his son's in the second one.
I'm glad you're struggling to remember it, because I was watching it and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to remember this. And I was like, and AJ's going to come in and he's going to be like, right? Ben Willis is like, because
I'll simplify it.
They hit Ben Willis, who was there burying it, like dumping a body already.
Exactly. Yeah. What you're supposed to take away from all of this shitty backstory is the guy they killed was not a good man. That's the point, right? Is that he wasn't a good guy. And
he wasn't a good dad. He wasn't just a cool dad.
He's not a good dad. Sorry, just indulging ourselves in past references to our own podcast. Look, and so the main characters are played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., and who's the other guy? We've seen him in something
Ryan
before.
Philippe.
What is he from? We've seen him in something.
Let me look up.
Also, by the way, by watching this film, it means that we've seen at least one franchise which has starred all the human members of the live-action Scooby-Doo films.
Yeah.
Yep. So there you go.
What's our Linda Cardellini one?
Daddy's Home.
Nice. Well, and also because like we tick off like 3 out of the 4 members just from Kevin Williamson movies.
Yeah.
Because of course Matthew Lillard was in Scream, and we have the 2. And so Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar met on this film and fell in love, and they're still married to this day. And
not to each other.
But despite having fallen in love on set and being 2 of the main characters, they actually only have 2 lines to each other.
Incredible.
One's like 20 minutes into the film, one's like an hour and 4 minutes into the film.
Treat them mean, keep them keen. So out of the 4 characters, only Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. survive. The other 2 get killed. And then the characters immediately get over this. It seems that they don't dwell on the deaths of their best friends for too long. And then
in classic
at the end
slasher
of the film,
fashion.
Yeah, and the end of the film, a year later, Jennifer Love Hewitt, whose name is Julie, by the way, she's all good. She's in college. She's having a good time. And then she sees written on a foggy mirror in her dorm bathroom, "I still know." And then the mirror smashes, and presumably the fisherman has jumped through it to get her. And then in the sequel, we start like that scene never happened.
Yeah. So Ryan Philippe, he's in Cruel Intentions, but he's not anything we've covered on the podcast. Although he is in... I saw it somewhere, and I was like, "Oh, that's a fun."
He kind of looks like the main character from Final Destination 1.
Yeah, he does. He's in something as well that I was like, "Oh,
that's good." So, what are we talking?
Sorry, he's the TV host in the music video for Outkast's "Hey Ya."
Great. Yeah. So this. I know what you did last time. I feel like out of all the iconic horror slasher franchises we've watched, I feel like this is the worst one, at least in terms of like care taken. Like I didn't enjoy the Hellraiser series that much, but whoever was making the Hellraiser movies cared a hell of a lot about the canon and the world they were building. Whereas this one is very loose. It's very This film, especially the first one, but all of them, I guess, are like poster childs for the very low level of quality that horror was in the early 2000s, late 90s to early 2000s. Yeah. This is we've got movies like Us and Get Out and Hereditary coming out.
Just those
now.
two.
Just those two. Just Jordan Peele movies.
The horror movies.
Or like the even more traditional ones like The Conjuring, which are all generally often well received. And
well, even if we've got like Blumhouse now, that's like
exactly.
They would make this kind of movie that like mid to low budget teen horror movie of varying quality.
Yeah, but the thing is that horror has kind of got horror in all its subgenres, I should say as well, has entered somewhat of a renaissance in the 2010s. I'm not claiming to be the only one. I'm not claiming to have invented that. That's
okay.
That's that people talk about this, and it's funny because until then, Richard, for all of our lives, horror was bad. You know what I mean? Like from when we were born up until I don't know, Get Out or It Follows dropped, like horror movies were bad. I associated horror movies with there aren't any good ones.
Yeah, well, and also because so you either had like The Shining, which was like, oh, it's the best movie of all time, and it's a horror movie, or you had like these campy 80s horror movies that like talking about when you find out about horror, you find out that the world has existed before you were born. That you find out about these films, but then also, like any new films that were coming out were like Hide and Seek with Robert De Niro or like Secret Window with Johnny Depp, like all these films that like I know because I've seen them at like the DVD store and like back when there were still DVD stores,
Yeah. I've seen Secret Window like 3 times for some reason. And so to me, watching the first film, I was like, this is just evidence. This sucks. This is so like, because the main Scream is great, but that was, that's the meta context one.
Yeah.
So
like, and
the
Scream
satire
was kind of is because again, I think there was and maybe it's just a thing that comes in waves, but like horror was real bad, and then Scream came along. Now people were like, shit, horror can be good again.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't have any more point to make, just other than, like, this is a prime example of how bad and dumb slumber party level horror movies used to be. Because also, which I don't know if you had planned to talk about this, but I'll bring it up now just to be a dick because it's my birthday and I can do what I want.
Go for it, mate.
If you don't include film franchise Fortnights Redux as part of, if that's a different series, then this is our 3rd franchise in a row, which I am putting in our unofficial teenage girl slumber party trilogy. Because we did Bring It On, the Bring It On series, we did the Cinderella Story series, and now we're doing I Know He Did Last Summer. All of which feel like girls, like teen to teenage girls would like watch at a slumber party, and all of which have the same titling scheme with at least their first 2 sequels. Yeah, because they both.
Well, we don't want to jump the gun too much with titles.
Okay, should we hold off on that?
This franchise deserves its own segment to talk about its titles.
We'll talk about that later.
But yeah, I agree. They're kind of almost like different ages of talking about of like slumber parties, because I'm guessing Cinderella Story, especially like the later ones, would be real young, and then Bring It On's like when you like start to learn a little bit about like sex and boys, but you like don't know too much about it. And then I Know What You Did Last Summer is like when you're, because they're like R16, so this is like when you're like 14, 15, and you're staying at the house of the cool parent that lets you get one out.
Here's what it is. You are having a sleepover with you're a 16-year-old girl, or maybe 15, 14. And you're having a slumber party, and your plan is to watch Bring It On and I Know What You Did Last Summer, but your little sister puts on a Cinderella Story before all of your friends have arrived, and mum is like, just let her finish it before you start, then you can send her to bed. And then it finishes, but you don't send her to bed, and instead you watch these inappropriate movies with her and be like, just don't tell mum I showed you these, all right? And then those movies went on to like kind of inform that girl's taste in movies, and like, even though she was terrified at the time, she grew up with I Know What You Did Last Summer as a very special memory. You know?
Well, actually, funny you should say that, because I don't know the exact circumstances surrounding it, but this was the first R-rated film my sister ever saw. And she was like, I was way too young to watch it.
Yeah, there you go. I think the first one I saw was Saw 2.
Nice. I distinctly remember seeing V for Vendetta at the cinema, and because it's R13 and I was 13, I was like, yeah. And then also, I think Scary Movie was the first R-rated movie I saw. I saw parts of it at least. I saw most of.
Actually, no, yeah. The ones that come to mind are Scary Movie 2, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. I think Saw 2 was my first R18 movie, because the other two are R16.
Yeah, oh god, I feel like I was really late in watching anything R18. Maybe Midnight Cowboy.
Sweet.
I don't know. I don't know if that's still R-rated, but when it was first released, it was like X-rated because there's a scene of implied homosexual oral sex.
The best
fun
kind.
Movie history fact for you. It was the first X-rated film to win Best Picture.
Wow. When I said best kind, was I saying that oral sex is the best kind of sex, or that homosexual oral sex is the best kind of oral sex? Or what was the implied? Or was I saying that implied homosexual oral sex is the best homosexual oral sex? You guys can decide at home. We're going to keep talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I do know what you did last summer, Richard.
What did I do?
was there. You came down to Christchurch for a bit.
Mm-hmm. What did I do?
And we hung out for a bit. And that was it.
Yep.
Do you think, is it, so all three of these movies, including the third one, which if you didn't catch before is like a soft reboot.
Yeah, it's like it becomes an anthology series.
Yeah. Do you think that the concept of it being last summer is kind of cheapened by the fact that all of them also take place on the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Like, pick one. Don't do both.
Yeah, I know you did last Independence Day.
Yeah. It feels like that should be the
because it's like it's this film's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine if Friday the 13th was also like around Christmas movie, around Christmas time. It'd feel stupid, you know?
But, okay, so let's talk fun trivia and stuff. So, like I said, this was written by Kevin Williamson. It was actually written before Scream, but it was only because of the success of Scream that he was able to sell the script. And then when Columbia Pictures was advertising it, they said, from the creator of Scream, and Miramax successfully sued them for false advertising.
Yeah, good on them.
Yeah. Now, so this is not a 100% original story, as you may or may not know. It's loosely based on a 1973 book called I Know What You Did Last Summer. Aside from the character names and the initial hitting someone with a car, the plot's pretty much completely different. In the novel, they don't hit a fisherman, but a young boy who was the brother of one of Helen's new friends. And also, no one dies in the book. Barry's shot but survives, and Julie comes to a close encounter and was almost choked by Collie, the boy's brother, but Ray hits her with a club. The character names in these movies are so unrelatable.
Yeah. Other than Julie, Ray, Helen.
Yeah. Helen. Yeah.
I don't know any teenagers named Ray or Helen or Barry.
It was the 90s, man. It was the 70s actually when it was written. But yeah, they have.
That actually explains it. That explains why the characters are named that, because it's based on a 70s book.
Yeah, I also read somewhere that the killer in the book is like one of the group or something. It's like someone known to the group.
Right.
Like, a normal slasher movie would do. But also it's based on The Hook urban legend. Which, are you very familiar with?
I thought I was until you asked, and now I feel like I've got to prove myself.
You do. No, it's one of those ones that's like, it's a very like fade in on teens telling a scary story, and then it's like, and then the hook was hanging from the car. Like, that's kind of all you ever hear of it. But basically, it's just a young couple are canoodling in a car, the radio's playing, and then a news bulletin's like, no, a serial killer's escaped and he's got a hook for a hand. And then, so there's a few different versions of the scary story. So, one, they have to leave the car, and then the killer's hook is found hanging from the door handle or like in the door itself. Sometimes they hear a scraping noise on the car. And then there's also the car breaks down, and then the guy has to go out and have a look, and then she's in the car and then starts hearing a thumping, and she looks up and and then sees the guy with the hook for a hand like smashing the guy's severed head. There's another one that's like sees he's like suspended from a tree, and she is scratching on the roof, and then it's his him dangling from the tree and his like nails scraping on the car because he's been killed. A lot of them end in the guy's head being decapitated.
Do you know that initial premise though is based on the first Zodiac killer attack? Yeah, so you can see it in the Zodiac movie. They portray it as the Zodiac killer was the first recorded instance of the killer coming after a couple in a car, making out at the point kind of thing.
Yeah. When was the Zodiac killer?
Like late 60s, I think.
Oh, yeah, actually, this predates that.
Oh,
so
interesting.
The best version of the ending though is she's like locked herself in the car, and then like she gets a tap on the window, and it's the guy with the hook for a hand holding the severed head of her boyfriend in one hand, and then she's like, "Thank God the car's locked," and then he's got the car keys in the other one, and that's how it ends. It's
very
like, spooky. But yeah, it's funny. This actually, the earliest kind of publication of this story was November 8th, 1960, where there was a Dear Abby column, like those Ask Ag, advice columns, where it's like, hey, if you're interested in teenagers, you'll print this story. I don't know whether it's true or not, but it doesn't matter because it served its purpose for me, and then tells the story. And then it's like, I'll never park to make out as long as I live. I hope this does the same for other kids. Jeanette.
Wow. I'm going to look at when Zodiac happened now because I feel like a lot of it is based on...
Well, it apparently circulated in the story first circulated in the 1950s.
Late 1960s. All right.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
Maybe he got his idea from the... That's a clue.
Oh.
Someone listens to this and just solves the Zodiac.
He was alive in the 50s.
Okay, we can rule out anyone who was under 10 at the time. Okay, so let's talk about watching this movie, having already seen Scary Movie. What did you think? What stuck out to you as the things that you're like, haha?
I don't think I remember Scary Movie quite good enough to like point to any specific examples, but overall the tone, and it is weird to see with the amount of stuff that we've watched and the amount of stuff we're expecting to see in movies like this. It was weird to see sincerity in a lot of the things that happens and a lot of the like lines of dialogue undercut.
The worst one, and it's ridiculous in this film, and then they take the piss out of it in Scary Movie. And my favorite having now watched Scream, and I know what you did last summer, my favorite jokes in Scary Movie are when they don't change the dialogue, like you say, like it's just sincerity, because the whole scene in Scream where Bobby shows up in Cindy's room and they have the chat, and then the dad like walks in and all this stuff. The dialogue is almost identical in Scary Movie, right, but it's just so silly. But there's the one when they're being stalked, and I know what you did last summer, and Jennifer Love Hewitt like is in the middle of the road and is like, "What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?" And then she does it in Scary Movie, and it's just so ridiculous, but it's like identical. And yeah, that really tickled me. Apparently, according to Jennifer Love Hewitt, that scene was directed by like some kid who got to come to set and like make up a scene.
What? Imagine just doing that. Imagine just letting a kid direct a scene in your film.
And then, she says it was very awkward, but because she thought it was silly, but liked the like the tantrumness of it. But yeah, it's very funny.
Yeah.
Another dumb bit of like, surely this can't be true because it's so stupid. So Johnny Galecki, who we mentioned is in this film, Leonard from Big Bang Theory, there's a scene, his death, he dies, and then they find his body in the trunk, and there's like a crab crawling in his mouth because it's like filled with crabs. So when they shot that scene, he did a body cast for that scene, so it's like a fake Johnny Galecki, and he later like got a call that production had been shut down because Jennifer Love Hewitt was so upset by seeing his dead body that he had to call and reassure her that he was alive.
Wow, that's pretty dumb.
Yeah, it's real dumb. It's dumb as.
The best part I think about this movie is that all the actors aren't very good actors.
Yeah.
And so it really, like, you really got to, like, reach into your suspension of disbelief for a lot of it and be like, okay, I can sit comfortably at this level of not believing what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we talk a bit about the sequels?
Yeah, mate. Let's fucking do it. So, second one was called I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Do we need to go much further into the plot? I can't remember
No, they go to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And Julie goes on a trip to the Bahamas with her new friends, and Ray thinks the killer's after them, so he follows after them, and so the whole thing's set in the Bahamas in a classic sequel trope, Richard, of the same movie but now in a different location. So we've seen The Hangover did it, and we've seen a couple of other movies have done it. And the killer does follow them. Jack Black's in it. He plays a local weed dealer, making this a third Jack Black or second Jack Black series. I can't remember. After we did Kung Fu Panda. By the way, though, Jack Black gets killed by the fisherman in this. And I never want to see Jack Black in another death scene again, because that was fucking sad, man. To hear Jack Black, who I associate with these funny, silly movies, pleading for his life, I was like, oh, this is making me very uncomfortable and sad. This was, I think, pre-fame for Jack Black.
Yeah, so what was it? High Fidelity was this big breakout. That was 2000,
yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. Because the killer's puts a knife in his hand. He's like, no, oh, no, and I was like, no, Jack Black, no,
Jack Black,
Jack Black. And so anyway, it turns out one of the people, the guy who's been crushing on Julie, the new guy, is actually the son of the fisherman, and so he's one of the bad guys, and
he orchestrated the whole thing of getting them to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And kind of a reference to Scream.
Yeah. And look, this was so bad, man. This was just a dead-ass, stone-cold, bad sequel.
What do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
4. This has got to be very low. 7. Yeah, this was contrived and stupid. I thought this sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not very good, eh?
No, it was so bad. And I'm trying to pull from examples, but there's nothing truly. Actually, you know what is truly dumb?
What?
I'm glad I remembered this. So we have a segment on this show called Dumb IMDb Trivia, where we go into the IMDb trivia section for the movies we watch, and since IMDb trivia is user suggested, a lot of it can be very
dumb,
poorly worded, or there'll be words that indicate the opinion of the author, which is something you don't really want when reading trivia, or it'll just be why did I, that's not a piece of trivia, that's just an obvious observation about the film.
Yeah.
And I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is our first film to have a dumb piece of IMDb trivia in the dialogue of the film, which is when the bad guy, who's the guy who's crushing on Julie, reveals himself to him, and his last name is Williamson, and he's like, "Don't you get it, Julie? I'm whatever his first name is, Williamson, Williamson."
Is it Benson, isn't it?
Benson, sorry, You're right. Yeah, Will Benson, that's his name.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm Will Benson, Ben's son. And it's like, oh my God, because he's Ben's son. And it's like, fuck, that's so stupid. Why would you write that? That's a piece of IMDb trivia. The killer, who's eventually revealed to be Ben's son, his surname is Benson. And they put it in the movie, and I was like, this is so stupid, man. And so I that's one of the things I could point to as being the kind of this movie was written by someone with wine bottles taped to their hands, and they're drunk and they can't get their fingers on the pen properly. So
exactly.
That's what it's like. It's told
the only
very
way, the only way this
it's told with the poise and grace of someone walking through cement and as it's drying. It's like
yeah,
all the way to the
this
end,
one
basically.
And Always Know are very motivational films. I find do you find that when you watch a real badly written film that you're like, I actually could write a film and it would be better than this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I go to start writing one, and then I just get bored and go look at Watch Mojo on YouTube.
Yeah, no, totally. The thing is, though, and all three movies come under this umbrella, is that the deaths aren't even that good in them.
Yeah, well, the first one deliberately avoids showing blood, and that was a choice made by the director.
What a dumb choice. Like, know
it's
your
a slasher
genre.
film, you know?
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is like, fans of slashers, and we had a few email or send in some voice messages for our sequel episode, and so there's a type of person that are real into horror movies and slasher movies, and we're kind of on the peripherals of that, being more general film enthusiasts. But like, people always talk about the deaths. The deaths have got to be bigger. The deaths have got to be better. And in all of these movies, the deaths aren't really like people get hit by cars and they get stabbed. Or hacked at with a hook.
There's a few throat slittings.
Yeah, but like, so, you know, like, I feel like Final Destination is our creme de la creme of cool deaths in a movie.
Oh, I mean, obviously, like that franchise has nothing but cool deaths. There's nothing else going for it.
Good. It's built around that concept, you know. And so, yeah, it's bad because it doesn't even do its genre very well, and its genre is the only thing going for it.
Yeah.
By the way, also, this is our third Ali Larter franchise after Final Destination and Legally Blonde. She's in the first one.
I did not pick that up.
She's Sarah Michelle Gellar's older sister.
I honestly didn't notice.
Wow. I thought she was the killer for a long time. And then
I thought Johnny Galecki was the killer.
Well, I thought they make you think it's him, and then it becomes clear that no, but even before then, it becomes clear that that would be too obvious to make him.
Yeah, well, it was quite early on. He has a confrontation with the killer.
Yeah.
It was one of those films that it was like they did a good job of making you suspect everyone, and then also taking everyone off as not being able to.
Yeah, make you suspect everyone, and then have it be a character you were literally incapable of suspecting because they weren't in it until the end.
Yeah. So Peter Jackson almost directed Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Which is one of those things that's like, nowadays that seems like such a weird fit, but like at the time it was like, he directed a shitty fucking slasher sequel.
I wonder if it would have been good if he'd directed. I wonder if Peter Jackson's, because like Peter Jackson's early films are actually quite good, like, I think.
Yeah.
Especially Brain Dead / Dead Alive. I actually think that's quite a good story.
So now moving on to I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. So this was originally announced in 2000 and was supposed to have the surviving characters from the original two films reappear, but it took too long to make, and then so they just did a reboot. The director was brought in after the original director was fired, so they had to do casting, source locations, all pre-production in 2 weeks. I don't know anything about the circumstances of the firing, but I can tell you the director that was fired was Damon Santostefano. Do you remember that name?
Yes, he directed A Cinderella Story 2.
And 3, and Bring It On 2.
And you know what? This means this is not only is the Slumber Party trilogy got all those little consistencies, but they also each contain an abandoned film by
Damon Santostefano.
Because, you know, he obviously checked out in those first two franchises while directing those movies as well. Yeah. Zazing! That's so interesting because the direction in this film, this isn't just a bad movie because it's badly made. It's a bad movie because there are choices taken. There are a lot of creative choices in the direction.
The first 10 minutes of the film was so hard to watch because it does this like flashy effect. Every fucking shot.
It's all flashy. It's very like they zoom in on things very fast. Everything is from the mind of a director who really wants to make an impression, but it's not. Yeah, they're not justified.
Yeah, there's a shot near the end of the film where someone's reloading a pump action shotgun, and it does that so the whole thing's been shot quite still up until that point, and then that shot's handheld, and so it starts on the barrel of the gun and then moves to the pump action and then up to his face, and it's supposed to be this real kinetic cool thing, but it just looks like the cameraman was standing there I'll get the barrel, and the director's taps on the shot. I was no, get the face. He's what, the hand? Oh, the face.
And man, it is so to put the cherry on the top of this already shit movie. It turns out the killer in this one is just the fisherman from the first two films, but as a zombie.
Oh my god, dude!
So now it's got these supernatural elements in the series. You're just gonna drop that? It's so stupid because none of the rest of the film has anything to do with.
None of the rest of the trilogy has anything to do with the supernatural.
Yeah, but also the film doesn't have anything to do with that character. They talk about him like he's a legend, and then we probably should
talk
go
about how
over.
the film starts because it's like the most fucking infuriating, stupid start to a horror movie I've ever
It's
seen.
so stupid.
It's so stupid.
They're at a carnival, right? The main characters, and they start spreading word about the fisherman legend, and
which is based on the legend of the first two films having actually happened almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, and then as if the writer of the script just got bored while they're like hanging out in the carnival, the fisherman just turns up. He smashes through a window, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And he starts battling with one of their friends, and then the friend falls off a roof, and then the main characters run away giggling because they orchestrated it, and one of their friends is actually dressed up as the fisherman.
Yeah, they're just playing a prank on everyone.
They just did it to meme them, and then they go back to the carnival and find out that their acquaintance who didn't know it was a joke fell off the roof and impaled himself on a tractor, and there's just a whole crowd around looking at it, and the police standing there with their hands on their hips what a shame. And it's you need to the public cannot see this. You need to cordon this off.
Yeah.
And a year later they get and I know what you did last summer note, because we haven't really
because the cover up in this one is they all decide we're taking this to our grave, that it was us pranking, and that our friend died.
Yeah, but I more meant that the in every film a year later a character gets a note saying I know what you did last summer, and so that happens, and then the movie just plays out, and most of the characters die, and then
it's a fucking
a zombie
version of Ben Willis.
Yeah,
it's so bad. Stupid.
It's so bad. We talked a bit before about the 48-hour film competition. This was a feature-length 48-hour film from a team that has been competing for nearly a decade and has never made the finals. And I apologize, that's probably the most niche reference I've made on this podcast, but there is something so fucking amateur and incomprehensible about this movie. It is hard to follow this movie because of how badly it's made. It's less like a movie and more like a bunch of clips stitched together. It doesn't feel like it flows on from each other. It doesn't feel like there's narrative flow. It feels like it's just this clip and then this clip, and then they color grade it all to make it look like a Linkin Park music video.
Well, let's not rag on Linkin Park here.
I'll rag on Linkin Park. Fuck it, why not? I'm going guns blazing.
Because the lead singer killed himself? Jesus.
What? Don't bring that part up. What are you doing?
Well, you're I don't care. What reason would I have to be sensitive around Linkin Park? I'm like, well, here's one.
Okay, I feel like I wasn't broaching that part of. I can say that Linkin Park have cheesy music videos.
Bad color grading in their music videos.
Yeah.
Chester single-handedly color corrected every frame.
Oh my
frame by
god,
frame.
I had no idea. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean, though. It's color graded so it looks like shit. All the blacks are punched into the nether world, and all the you know what I mean. They're crushed. I think is the term. They are crushed blacks. It's so fucking bad and so hard to watch. This is. I feel like we've watched. I don't want to crown this as the worst movie we've seen for this podcast, but it is. It is Hades tier.
Yeah, and what do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
0.
It actually is the highest rated of the franchise. No, it's not. It's got 0. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the less said about this film, the better. So, do you want to talk about...
One of our listeners, Michael Baston, he sent me a photo this week that he was watching the first one.
Oh, fuck, I forgot to post a photo of the third one. I need to do that. Fuck, I've been really bad with posting photos.
Yeah, he showed me. He was like, "Hey, I'm watching I Know What You Did Last Summer." I was like, "Oh, cool. You're going to watch the sequels?" And he said, "Not with those Rotten Tomato scores."
Should I just take a photo?
Can we start referring to Rotten Tomatoes as 10 toes?
Yeah.
With an apostrophe at the start. Rotten Tomatoes. 10 toes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Guarantee we'll forget that. But yeah. So let's talk about titles. We talk about titles a lot on this podcast. So these films, despite the quality of them, have some of my favorite titles.
I feel like these titles fulfill the dream you had from Bring It On and A Cinderella Story, which we talked about.
Oh my god, I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's just like, it just sounds cool, you know. And then I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is quite cheesy, but then rounded that off with I'll Always Know just makes it cooler again. Yeah,
because we talked about how you would have loved if we Bring It On again. Bring It On yet again.
Yeah.
And like A Cinderella Story, another Cinderella story, yet
Cinderella.
Another Cinderella story. This is the realization.
Yeah, I love the idea
of
it getting more ridiculous. Like, if you made more and it's just like, I'll always still know what you did like.
Yeah. The thing I don't like, just from I like the titles for the I Know What You Did Last Summer sequels just because they're silly and funny. But what I don't like, if I was to critically analyze them and tear them down, like, knowing isn't a limited concept. Like, to know something isn't necessarily a limited concept. So to say I still know and I'll always know are like redundant statements.
So it's like remembering, not knowing.
Yeah. So it's like they. Yeah. If it was I'll always remember what you did last summer, that's maybe better. But to say I'll always know, it's like, no shit, you'll always know. I'll always know that 2 + 2 is 4. It doesn't mean
if you believe the theories.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't mean I'm like, it's more shocking. Like, if I said to you, Richard, I know your mum, and
what?
then in 2 years I was like, I still know your mum. You'd be like, yeah, I know.
And then and then like 8 years later, if you're like, I'll always know your mum.
I'll always know your mum.
AJ, Richard, we haven't spoken in 8 years since you said you still know my mum.
Yeah. So look, they are. It is funny to finally see that titling scheme taken to a third film. I guess.
I do. Interesting though, the third one wasn't always called I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. It was originally titled, get this, The Hook.
Wow, then there you're not getting. You're not going to get any people watching this movie.
It's just Well, I thought this would be a nice segue into continue the franchise on what might be one of our shortest videos in a very long podcasts in a very long time. So there are. Are there? Maybe there are plans to continue the franchise. Well, there are. So Jeff Howard and Mike Flanagan, who are the guys behind Haunting of Hill House. Mike Flanagan is directing Dr. Sleep, the Shining sequel. Cool. They're doing a remake. It should be out by the end of 2020, apparently. This is, I think, from like 2014. It was announced. Blumhouse is working on it. It's being fast-tracked at the moment.
Wow.
And so apparently the killer won't be one of the main group or Ben Willis, which were elements from the novel and the first movie. And that original novel from 1973 was republished last year in 2018 with like some content of it modernized.
Wow.
Okay. So I would like to go first for continue the franchise.
Please.
So I've decided to, and it's following on from our discussion about titles, I've decided to, and we can work on this together as well, I've got some, is I've decided to turn I Know What You Did Last Summer into a classic horror film franchise. So imagine if I Know What You Did Last Summer came out in 1982. So then you would have had I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, and then Last Summer, and then I Know What You Did Last Summer 5, and then the prequel, which is called The Fisherman. Yeah. And then
wait, the Fisherman : A New Last Summer Story.
Yeah. I Know What You're Doing This Summer, and I Know What You're Doing Next Summer. So that's when we've now, because of Always Summer, I'll Always Know, introduced the supernatural elements. This is now, very supernatural and involves like pre-crime and stuff like that. But I Know What You're Doing Next Summer bombed at the box office, so they didn't make another one for 10 years, and then they ended up doing a crossover which was called I Know the Hell You Raised Last Friday the 13th on Elm Street, which is like a four-way between, because now the Ben Willis is a horror icon,
Yeah,
and
that's what they're trying to
supernatural.
do with him, isn't it? They're trying to make him a horror icon.
And then there was a 5-year gap, and then they made I Know What You Did Last Summer Exodus, which was they had to make it to keep the rights, and it's critically panned. And then 6-year gap. I didn't work out how many years between these films, but anyway, this one would come out this year. It's called I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and it ignores everything apart from the first film and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt return.
Wow, very good.
And also that would fit because Freddie Prinze Jr. said he's never seen the second film because it got such bad reception. He was like, "Yeah, I'm not watching it."
No, that's cool. My Continue the Franchise is very limited in its scope. I basically just thought I could rattle off a few, again, just sequel titles based on where to go from I'll Always Know. So I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Still No.
Nice.
Shrug. Still no. That's it. Then I thought I Forgot What You Did Last Summer. Which is Ben Willis gets amnesia and becomes their best friend, maybe, until he realizes.
And then they do a sequel. I just remembered what you did last summer.
Yeah, I just remembered what you did last summer. Oh my God, I just remembered what you did last summer.
Yeah, we were just messaging each other throughout the week. Oh my God, I totally forgot, but I just remembered what you did last summer.
My favorite one was that I came up with was I never even knew what you did last summer. I just guessed what you did last summer.
What are you doing this summer?
Yeah, I just assumed what you did last summer.
Yeah.
It's always summer in Philadelphia.
Nice.
I'll always some.
Did you guys do anything fun last summer?
I'll always remember what you did last sunny in Philadelphia.
Hey, welcome back to school. How was your summer?
Yeah. Just to keep going with it, just to make it more and more insane and ridiculous. I do like, I like your idea of doing a pre-crime. That's like, I know what you did next. I know what you'll do next summer as like the Jason X of the franchise. It's like maybe set in space.
Yeah, because I imagine I Know What You're Doing This Summer was actually like considered the best one since the original, and then I Know What You're Doing Next Summer, everyone was like, this one's fuck, this is the worst one. That's like Halloween, H2O, and Resurrection.
I don't know what you did last summer, and it's the same events of the first film, but just from like another character's perspective. He doesn't know what's going on.
you see sort of like someone that's just like ancillary to the event. So he's like driving past the car crash, and he's like, oh Jesus,
jeez, is that Ray and Helen? Oh my God.
Oh my God, I hope they're okay. He's Ray's drunk again.
Or you could go, here's the way to go with it. I know he did last winter. I know he did last spring. I know he did last autumn.
It's the same group of people. They've like every season they've hit someone with their car.
Because as much as I've enjoyed shitting on Always Know, I do think if I were to seriously try to continue the franchise, I do think doing an anthology is probably the most intriguing way to be able to get life out of this concept.
Yeah,
but
I know what you did last winter would be fucking cool, actually.
Yeah.
Because like horror films set in winter are cool.
Yeah. The weirdest thing about Always Know, though, in terms of the way it becomes an anthology series, is that it there's because you know how an anthology needs one thing similar for it to like all revolve around it, you know,
whether it's like setting or character.
Yeah. I think it's too much to do it both. It's about a group of people who accidentally are responsible for someone's death and decide not to tell anyone, and also set it on the 4th of July. So I think you'd have to you could set it around other set
it in the summer. But then also, to be fair, it does make sense in the plot. I'm giving some credit to it because it is like, on 8 years ago tonight.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I just think that like it's enough to be for an anthology series to be based around a bunch of people accidentally kill someone and cover it up, and then someone finds out. Like that I think that has legs that could go in many different places.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to keep that Independence Day feel, you could set it around other like B grade holidays,
Yeah.
Like don't do Christmas or Easter, but do like, I don't know.
Well, if they did, I know he did last winter, it could be like driving home on Christmas Eve or something like that for a party.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Anyway,
love it.
should we just wrap this episode up and keep
then,
it
wouldn't you
for the
just
first
call it,
time
I
in a
know
long
it-
time at under an hour?
No, Cinderella story was like under an hour.
Well, whatever.
Whatever, man. Yeah, no, cool. Okay, well, I hope people just leaning away from the mic as I do my ending monologue. I hope people
we do
enjoyed
have
this.
one more segment that we would normally do, but we're not doing it this week. Franchise roulette. But we do have to reveal the franchise we're doing next week, which next fortnight was voted on by our patrons on www.patreon.com/cultpopture. There, for as little as $1 a month, you can suggest film franchises that you would like us to cover on the podcast, and the one with the most likes will be the one we cover. And this week it is The Man with No Name Trilogy, which is the Clint Eastwood Western trilogy directed by Sergio Leone, which consists of a fistful of dollars for a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That we are, and that was suggested by someone who's been suggesting things for a long time on our Patreon.
And now he's the man with no name. No, it's Alexander McDonald. Thank you very much, Alexander. We look forward to discussing those films. It would be good because I haven't seen, and he suggested this because I revealed on the podcast recently that I had only seen one Clint Eastwood film, and that was The Mule, where he has 2 threesomes. But then I watched The Deadpool before the next episode of the podcast, so I could be like, I have seen one more thing. Because it was I think I only had 90 minutes, and it was very short, and it was on Netflix. But yeah, so I mean, if you want to suggest Dirty Harry for us to cover as well, go for it, because they're also Clint Eastwood films, and there's 5 of them, and I've only seen the last one.
That's actually more of a legitimate franchise than The Man with No Name, because I was looking up the Man with No Name trilogy is like a trilogy for marketing purposes, like selling the box set basically. I was looking into it as that. I mean, obviously if you've called one film a fistful of dollars and the next one is called a few dollars more, then they're probably sequels, but apparently the character, the Man with No Name, actually has a different name in each of them. So I don't know. I've seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but it is cool that we're doing a franchise now. Have we ever done a franchise? Yeah, I guess Lord of the Rings. That's like of this cultural quality, you know.
Yeah,
like,
although apparently I've heard the
place.
first 2 aren't anywhere near as good as The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And also, though, I think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly just like retells the first 2 as well. But we will discuss this.
Yeah, we'll stop talking about what we don't know anything about.
Yeah, and we'll transition to say thank you for listening to this podcast. We love you, and I'm sorry that AJ and I were not able to be fully honest and open with each other this week.
No.
Because not only does he know all about this 48 Hours business, I've seen Toy Story 4 and he hasn't. So I could just spoil it, but I'm having
fuck, man.
I'm having to.
If you spoil it, I'm disqualifying you from the competition.
But I've had to. There's been so many times in this podcast that I've been like, when that character gets their throat slit, it's exactly like a bit. And I can't say.
Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. And if you like this podcast, please support it over on all the different social medias. We are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we are on YouTube, we're on Acast, we're on iTunes. I think if iTunes is still a thing,
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts, and all of that is on Cult Popture. Look up Cult Popture anywhere and find us on there. And you can also send us an email if you like at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. So in 2 weeks we're going to be doing the Man with No Name trilogy. In 1 week we are going to be doing the most disappointing films of 2019 part 1. That's right, everybody. We're doing it in the middle of the year now.
Yeah, and it's still probably going to be 3 hours long.
And after that, I thought after Man with No Name trilogy, we could maybe do another fan mail episode.
Oh yeah,
if we accumulate enough.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I'd love to get people writing in. Maybe if you're listening to this, send us a message of like your most disappointing or surprising or whatever films from the year, because I'd love to get more people's opinion on that as well.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. And remember, I'll always know what you did last summer. That was good.
You listen to our podcast.
You listened to our podcast last summer. Yay! All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.